Hey guys. So I was watching a video this morning. It was on Majority Report. This guy that I'm new to this. So bear with me. This guy, Dave Rubin. I guess he does comedy. He's like Milo. He's this gay guy that wants the virtue signal to conservatives that he's not really being treated badly. And so his part of his stick was to basically let conservatives who feel like they've been victimized in some way or another speak out. I guess there was a guy up front that was like a gay Jewish or bisexual Jewish guy that likes Milton Freeman and some conservative guy that lives at a college and all that stuff. And the guy that was telling the story, it really touched me because he's come from a Mormon background, and he talked about how he knew he had a anti-gay, leaning. He was kind of homophobic background, and how he had read a story when he was younger about a kid that was gay, that thought he was gay, and that killed himself on the steps of his church because he didn't want to live as gay. Now, putting the gay thing aside for a second, just the thought of a child killing themselves is sad. But you just know someone out there was probably telling them, these faggots, and saying stuff like that. And he's like, well, not accepted by anybody. I live out here probably in fucking Kansas or somewhere. It's all white people. It's all conservatives. He killed himself, and that's when that gentleman that told the story realized that he had a blind spot, that there was something wrong with that, and he wanted to change. And he had thought about that and the fact that you do still have gay guys getting beat up and killed. You just don't hear about it. That stuff still happens. There are still hate crimes. And that you have white people out here who think they're a victim because they have to look at gay people at college, or they have to listen to hip-hop music at the red light, or the fact they have to look at black people in school, in class with them, in college, that makes them a victim, while we're out here looking at Bolton John getting murdered in his apartment by some trigger-happy cop that murdered him. And the police searched warrant his house and used a little bit of dope they had to make him look like he was a criminal. We have Anastasia, I can't pronounce the name, Anastasia in Fort Worth, killed by the police for looking out her window. This is our America. But you have people who think they're victims just by having to deal with anything that's not white and male and heterosexual and Christian. And I think that's sick. Anyway, so Dave Rubin, he was telling a story about, it was a punchline, he was telling up to it about some guy that had alopecia and how people thought he was a skinhead, and he wasn't. He had alopecia. He had a disease. And he hadn't even got to the punch. He hadn't even got to the joke, and people were laughing. And he's like, no. That's not funny. There's nothing funny about people thinking, and he says, what have I created? What have I created? And I think he said something like to somebody about how these guys said, you used to be a progressive. I used to be a progressive and had a nail on my head and they pulled the nail out. And I guess that's funny. I guess. This is what I mean when I make the point about how gay people, black people, once we're given a little bit of leeway to where we're not being killed, we're not being explicitly killed, that there's kind of a ignorance, a great forgetting of what's been done to gay people back in Stonewall, what's been done to blacks all the way from slavery, mandatory minimums, drug task forces. I mean, Nixon, Reagan. I don't have to even describe the things they did. Look them up. The things that Nixon said about black people and did to black people. Woo. Anyway, and to the poor. Things Nixon did to, things Reagan did to the poor. That's kind of synonymous with black people at that time. Still synonymous. This is the danger, you know, and this guy was saying, he was like, you know, you basically just the fact of you having to look at gay people, you're being victimized. You know, that's nuts. And this guy was saying, well, hey, this guy, Dave Rubin, he's homosexual, I guess. He's living in Los Angeles with his boyfriend or his husband or whatever. And he can be gay and be a conservative. Probably not doing too bad financially. A lot of gay people, a lot of minority people are forced into left corners. They are pushed into that direction because they have no other choice. They're not accepted by the majority group. So they have to, I won't say they're reading Bakunin and reading Marx. I'm not saying that. But they're forced into these groups because they're not accepted. They haven't historically been accepted. They're not going to be accepted. And they know it. And I think it's sad that this man gets a little bit of leeway where he's living in Los Angeles. He's probably around other gay people. He's around people who probably accept him, who don't care he's gay. And he thinks he's got, and with that, it's like Kanye. You get this money, you get this freedom, and then you use it to screw your own people? I don't get that. Like I tell you, PK Subban said that we all got a time. And he was talking about how one day he's gonna take a jersey off and put it in his closet, and he won't pull it back. He won't put it back on. You know, that's gonna happen. One day he's gonna walk away from hockey. Hopefully he gets to do it on his own time, but one day that's gonna be over. And he was talking about how he wanted to use his time to do good, and I respect him for that. There's things he does or does, other things he does I don't agree with, but I respect him for that, recognizing that, hey man, every man is given a time and a season. I'm not talking about death. I'm just talking about that time to where you're not in the spotlight no more. You go into the great night, and I accept that. And I think it's sickness. You have people who are from minority groups who use their power, their privilege, to hurt their own group. Now, in this case, this guy is just making money off his own people. And people were understand, they were like, hey, I mean, I bet you this guy isn't going to go into Alabama or Kentucky or any of these states and tell a bunch of jokes and go on stage and say, oh, hey, any gay guys any gay people in the room? Arizona, Texas, Tennessee. No. I want to read it the way he said it. The rural states, southern areas of the country are conservative. And people on here are trying to defend it. They're talking about how he went to Kentucky. I think and this guy's like, no, Louisiana, Georgia, Kentucky, Alabama, Missouri, where the real gay bashers are. And this guy here says, oh, well, he did go to these places, and he's like, I think he's like he lived in some areas. Hold on. He tries to say Louisiana's the most diverse state in the United States. He's talking about New Orleans, and he uses some of Kentucky where he lived in had a pretty large gay college student population. No one throws them out pitchforks. And Nashville, Tennessee is a gay bar scene right in the country music capital. Nobody dragged behind pickups every weekend. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, New Orleans is a world-class city. I say so. I don't know if that's statistically. It's known for that. I think there's like some gay stuff. I forgot what they call it, but it's some kind of gay shows they have where people wear drag and stuff. Like, one part of the year, you have Mardi Gras, all that other stuff. I think New Orleans was a French colony or something. So New Orleans is a little bit different because I think we all know about Monroe and West Monroe and all that, and the very rural part. And then we know about New Orleans. And New Orleans is pretty conservative too. That's the tourism. And just like with Mexico, people think about the drug cartels and the violence, you have some very nice cities in Mexico that are allowed to be nice. They're allowed to be crime-free. The cartels largely leave those areas alone because that's money. It does not mean Mexico is a free, it's a peaceful country. No, there's spots where they don't do that. Same thing with New Orleans. Okay, Kentucky. You, by your own saying, you just mentioned a college town. Okay. Or excuse me, a college campus. Okay. So, a college campus, a lot of those folks come from where? Other places. Like here in Charlotte, John C. Smith. A lot of those folks are from Maryland and from other states. Yes. So now, does that have any standing on the city or the state at large? It has nothing to do with that state or that city. That's the kids that come in there. And that's also a culture of the college itself. A lot of colleges are very liberal, are very progressive, are very free thing. I think it's always been like that. I shouldn't have to explain this. It has nothing to do with Kentucky. And also, just because you have a large gay population on the school campus, that does not mean the town accepts it. Okay, baby? This is white folks ignoring reality. And then he mentioned Nashville, Tennessee. Well, I think Nashville, Tennessee is the capital of Tennessee. And Nashville is a pretty big city and a pretty diverse city. Once again, like I mentioned in the beginning of New Orleans, when you have these party towns, you're going to have a little gay stuff. You're going to have a little drug stuff in there. And they're going to overlook a lot of that because that's money for the state. That has nothing to do with the state of Tennessee. It has nothing to do with towns over. It has nothing to do with a town that's 20 miles outside of the city limits. Nothing to do with that. You can't compare the two. And I think it's ignorant to even try to do that. To tell me that because your college campus had a lot of gay kids on it, that somehow Kentucky's not fucking racist and bigoted and homophobic. You're a fucking idiot to even use that. I understand people use blanket statements and saying the whole South is bigoted. I understand that's not true. But if you're trying to tell me your experience in the University of Kentucky or whatever means that state is not that, you're a fool. Point blank, period. I live in university. I live in UNCC. And I know it's a pretty open-minded area. I like this area. It's very different than the rest of Charlotte. But I would never try to define North Carolina off of living down the road from UNCC. I wouldn't do that. And oh, man. And guess what cities he went to in Texas? All the major ones. Dallas, San Antonio, all of which are overwhelmingly liberal. I love that. I love that. It's just crazy. It's just completely crazy. But this is what white folks do. It's a spirit of victimhood. And it's a needing to use victimhood to explain and legitimize the way they treat gay people, blacks, and other minorities. This is what they do. And this is what I expect. And seeing Dave Rubin come out and do comedy about stuff like that, it's disconcerting. Because it throws away all the accomplishments gay people have accomplished over the last decade or two. That you were given the right to marry, to enter in marriages with the same sex, people that you love, and you just use that. It's just like Milo. I mean, I never watched Milo. I don't even know how he talks. I don't even know how he sounds like. I don't know what he looks like today. I don't care. To me, Milo was a joke, disgusting, and I think it's embarrassing that you have somebody who's a homosexual and who chooses to use the little bit of power he's got to run out here and attack other gay people. I don't get it. And it's something to be said about Trump and how he brought out the worst in America. I would say that. If someone was asking about the reign of Trump, I would say that Trump really brought out the worst in Americans. I think he really showed us who we are. And he really showed you how white people think about you. And how they don't respect you. And like I said, anybody that's trying to sit up here and say they're a victim because they have to live next to gay people or look at gay people holding hands, I think that's sad. I would say grow up. Peace.